Hey guys, welcome back to the God Fishing Podcast. And once again, I'm excited about this one. Really excited about this one. This one is really near and dear to my heart, and we'll get into kind of why that is here in a minute. But let me introduce our guest, Adam Minic. Adam, thanks for coming on the show.
Hey, Brian, thanks for having me. Appreciate it. I'm
Absolutely.
honored.
So, real quick, how I met Adam was he's actually a client of Got Fishing. That's how this whole relationship started. And someone that we'll be talking a lot about this show during this show is Mike Pena. And a lot of the people who are watching this show probably remember a podcast that we did with Mike last year on chironomid fishing. That was awesome. And if you haven't watched it, make sure that you do because it's a good one. But real quick, I met Mike at a trade show. They were talking about heading to Jurassic. I had just gotten back from Jurassic and was lucky enough to help this group get down there. They had such a great time. They turned around and ended up booking again. Got Fishing put together a hosted trip, and so this relationship kind of got started because we had a lot of things in common, and we also live in Idaho, and so we started fishing together. Started talking about different things, and really what I resonated with Mike and Adam was this friendship that they had. You know, I have fishing buddies too, and I have a couple of really good fishing buddies, and I love hanging out with them. And when I'm out there with them, you know, it is all about that kind of time spent doing something cool or out on an adventure with a good buddy. But when I met Mike and Adam, you know, their friendship is that on steroids. You know, just the friendship and camaraderie that they have while they're out on the water, how they treat each other, the amount of excitement that they have for each other's fish, whether it's a good one or a great one. It's hard to tell from the excitement that each one of them is exuding over that other person's. And, you know, I've been to Jurassic with these guys. I've also been to Pyramid Lake. And, you know, when you're at Pyramid, you're on a ladder and you got a lot of stuff going on. And when your buddy catches a fish, you know, you got to reel all that stuff in and put your crap together to get off the ladder, to go net that fish and to capture the moment. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that today, about, you know, really outside of fishing, what it means to have a really, truly good fishing buddy and what that means to Adam and Mike. And I think we're all going to be able to resonate with that. The second part of this podcast and why I was excited to have Adam on it is because I'm big into fish photography. You know, I'm not great at it, but I'm trying to get better and better at it. But one of the frustrations that I've had over the years is that, you know, you're out on these bodies of water, you're on a river, you catch that, you know, maybe it's even a personal best, but it's just a really nice fish and you're proud of it. And you get back to the truck or the car and you open up your phone and you take a look at that photo and it's just terrible. And you're wondering why you didn't spend more time on that. And today we're all running around with these fancy phones, where most of us are running around with a phone that has more capabilities today than cameras that we had, you know, 5 and 10 years ago. And one of the things about Adam and Mike is they crush it when it comes to the photos. I mean, crush it. And they really, really, after hanging out with them, I understand why now. They really put a lot of time and energy into that. And what I really love about it is how they help each other set up for the most amazing photo, kind of coaching each other on how to hold the fish and making the best light. And the end product is something that isn't just a great photo, but it's capturing incredible memory. So, Adam, again, I really appreciate you coming on this, and well, I'd like to just kind of start off with talking about a little bit how'd you and Mike meet, how this kind of relationship get started, and how does that tie into your experience out fishing?
Yeah, thanks, Brian. I really appreciate you having me on today. Honored to speak about my camaraderie and my brotherhood with Mike Pena. A great story leading back to Father's Day 13 years ago. My sons didn't want to fish that day. My wife said, you know, I know you really want to fish, so go for it. You know, so I went on a solo trip. I ended up at a small little lake in outside of Cascade, Idaho, called Horse Thief. It's just a quick day trip, you know, hour and a half from my house. And I end up at Horse Thief. I'm sitting in the parking lot. You know, I'm alone, and you know, I was feeling frisky that morning, so I cracked a beer, and I'm standing there drinking a beer, and it's in the morning, you know, so yeah, can't drink all day if you don't start in the morning. And you know, Mike Pena and his son pull in, and oh wow, I'll never forget it. You know, he's got Semper Fi license plates, and he's jumps out, and I'm thinking, man, this guy's a cop for sure. So I'm hiding my beer, you know, even though it wasn't technically anything wrong. I'm standing on the side of a lake in the middle of nowhere. But you know, his son jumps out, and right away I start talking to Mike Jr. about how beating the old man. I'm like, you got to get him today. You know, I didn't even know these guys, but it was a
Yeah.
great way to warm up to fly fishing and together. Little did I know that Junior that was going to resonate with him, because I handed him a couple flies and said, let's go. You know, let's get the old man. And I could tell Mike was competitive just in his walk and his demeanor. He's not a cop, by the way. He was a Marine and served our country, and I'm eternally grateful for that. But we get to chatting, and you know, we start realizing that we have a lot in common. And you know how it is. You can tell when you're around your own people, even if you just met.
Yeah.
And so we kick out in our tubes, and we start hammering fish. And next thing I know, Junior's saying to Senior, it's 13, you know, and Mike's like, oh crap, I got to catch up. I'm at 12, you know. And so anyway, we stuck a lot of fish that day, exchanged numbers. I didn't, you know, I had a great day, but I didn't even forecast what that was going to turn into to our future. I get a text from him weeks later, and he says, hey man, you were kind of fun to fish with. Let's do this again. So we fished, and we had a great time. And one of the things I noticed about Mike right away was his selfless attitude towards it. You know, he's competitive, but there's another aspect to being competitive, which is being humble. And you know, I think some of the overachievers out there, include myself in that, is, you know, we expect a lot out of ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, it's pressure that we put on ourselves. It's kind of silly in that respect, you know, but you know, he and I kind of shared that bond right away with being competitive, but also, you know, we're sharing flies. We're talking, you know, I
Yeah.
start picking off fish, rolling a damsel at 5 feet, and he's like, how deep are you? You know, I'm 5 feet. He's like, dang, I'm 6.5, 7 feet, you know. Just through fishing with him, it kind of blossomed into, you know, man, I've shared the water with many guys over my life, and I even have some experiences with guys that you know, I kind of, you know, regretted spending the day with them. I hate to say it, but it was more of this. I spent all day taking their picture, or you know, more or less just trying to help them without any reciprocation. And you know, any relationships built on the foundation of both parties coming to the table, you know,
Yeah.
and whether it's the small things or the big things. And you know, Mike and I, we quickly realized that we both had this passion. We also didn't have a friend network that were really at the same place in life at the same time as us. You know, he and I were both, you know, we've been fly fishing 30 plus years, each of us, but it was hard for us to find that bond with somebody. And once we kind of realized that we were cut from the same cloth, you know, we started planning more fishing trips. We started getting into rolling indicators and chronomids, and you know, Mike's a master fly tyer as far as I'm concerned. And he's also a consummate studier, and he's always trying to look for a way to be better, whether that's in his professional life, being a father, being a friend, being a mentor. You know, he's a selfless man. And, you know, I needed a mentor. He's 10 years my senior. Um, at the time, a lot of my friends were kind of going in a different direction with their careers and kind of their vision of where their life was going to go. They were maybe a little more complacent than what I would have liked to have seen. And I was kind of in this camp of like, you know, I want to go, and I want to go hard. You know, this is the one life we get. Let's go hard. And I want to surround myself with people like that.
Right.
So that's how Mike and I met.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I think, you know, with that story is like kind of something that we can all resonate with, whether we have a tight friendship or a relationship with someone that we feel that way about when we're out fishing, or maybe something that we long toward. But what I also heard in that is that, like you said, there's a real responsibility in any relationship. And when you have a fishing buddy, you know, it's how do I be the best fishing buddy? What am I bringing to the table here? What kind of information? What kind of, again, photography, snacks, ideas. How do I support you? And so I do. I think it's not necessarily always a 50-50, but it most certainly is a partnership. And
Oh,
so go
I
ahead.
couldn't agree more. Sorry to interrupt you, Brian. I
No,
couldn't agree more. I wanted to sneak in there the fact that, back during that time frame was, kind of that 08, 09 time frame. Both of us were going through the trudge of, the economy and our careers. And what we both kind of noticed right away is how eager we both were to come to the table on splitting, costs. We change out on who does the lunch each day. We change out on, if one of us is hooking up, the other guy's sharing the flies, the depth, the knowledge, and really spending the time to do that. That's kind of unheard of. It's a selfless type of act, and that resonates with me. That's what's made our relationship so special. Is that 50-50 attitude.
totally, totally. So tell me, in this relationship, somewhere along the way, these photographs started appearing, and you guys started to kind of get a reputation for taking really, really great photos. Not just always out there catching great fish, but it was also the photos of these great fish that you guys were taking with the drip and the perfect lighting, and it literally looks like professionals are taking it at the end of the day. Walk us through a little bit about, like, how did the passion come in? I mean, I think we all really do want a great photo, but you took the time and energy to figure out how to make that happen. So kind of walk us through, like, that whole deal, and where this passion kind of came from.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. It circles back to my youth. I have a very interesting story. My 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 parents abandoned me when I was little, and my grandparents raised me. My grandfather was a Korean War veteran and a railroader here outside of Nampa, Idaho. He took a transfer to Bailey Yard, which was outside of North Platte, Nebraska. And my grandfather was a no nonsense guy. He believed in work ethic. He believed in the principles that built this great nation, and he really instilled in me the work ethic and integrity and all of those things that sound cliche, but
Yeah.
really can change your life for the better. And from the time I was a kid, I was passionate about hot rods. That was kind of my thing, was hot rods. But one unique experience happened before my parents were off the scene, which was my father. Before he died, he actually took me fishing. And I was a wee lad. I was probably 5 years old at the time, and I'm chucking spinners, and and then after that, when I would fish with my grandfather, I'd tug on his coat sleeve all the time to take me fishing, and he was a worm drowner. He wanted to dunk worms, and that was great because it gave me access to something that I didn't realize was such a passion. My grandfather and my great grandfather were both into fly fishing, including my great grandfather. So this was my step grandfather that raised me. I should make that point. My real grandfather passed away before I got a chance to meet him, but my great grandfather used to build bamboo rods. So there was something in there, stirring
Yeah.
around from just basically my lineage. But beyond that, you know, I I just it resonated with me. So being into hot rods, the reason I brought that up is because I was very detail oriented as a kid. I'd build models, I'd spend countless hours painting each part, and making sure everything was perfect on them. So I would say I have a very much a passion for attention to detail, is what I would call it. I love details. It's just something that it just resonates with me. So fast forward a bit. By the time Mike and I had met each other, I was very fortunate in that I got involved in kind of the local Boise, Idaho fly fishing scene. I would volunteer at the Boise show, the fly fishing show,
Yeah.
and I'd help kids learn to cast, which was awesome. Very rewarding. At the time, I had babies. I didn't have anyone I could cast with, so I would go down there and volunteer at that show. And luckily enough for me, I met a guy named Jeff Currier. Jeff's been on the U.S. team. He's a complete stud. I'm sure a lot of people know of him because he's quite famous in the fly fishing world. But he was putting on a clinic on fishing photography. And, I was like, I got to check this out because, holding a trout, by its jaw like a bass like this at that point in my life, it didn't resonate with me at all.
Right.
So I took this class, and that was kind of the beginning of something. In his class, he spoke to some key things that fly fishing is about sharing. To me, it's a never-ending learning curve. If we can share with each other, that's part of what this is all about. That's why sharing the water with someone you care about, or hanging with your boys. That's a big deal. That's our downtime. And Jeff Currier spoke to a few things that I had not considered at that time, which was one was the position and angle of the fish in relation to overhead lighting. Usually what you want is you basically want the sunlight on the fish and in the angler's face if you can get it. It's a little uncomfortable. That's why some guys will wear their shades, but having the fish turned into the light captures a lot more of the beauty of the fish. Some of the other things that Jeff would speak to would be positioning of yourself in relation to the actual holder, because it really kind of is a tag team there. And so, that was kind of he spoke to other things, but those were the things that kind of resonated with me the most out of that specific seminar I took with Jeff. And after that, I took a buddy over the Waihe River. We went chasing brown trout, and there was a specific trout that I had been targeting. It's you fish the Waihe,
Yeah.
Brian. There's the tunnel section. There's a tunnel that goes through rock there, and just before that section, there's some good bends in the river. And I took a buddy of mine that had never fly fished before. And my whole goal of the day was to put him on a good fish because, you catch one good fish, well, you're going to be hooked. So I set up his stick, got the right depth, just a small chronomid. And I show my buddy how quick casting lesson, and he casts out there, and I just said to him, that's good, that's going to work great. Just go 10 feet further. You just got to get it 10 feet further. You got to get it to the other bank. And as soon as it hits the water, give it a big mend, And my buddy does. He laces one out there, gives it the big mend. It buries, and he goes, "Oh, snag." And he's on, and I'm like, no, you got him. This fish rolled, and it was amazing, actually. It was a big, thick brown. That river doesn't have a lot of 23, 24-inch fish in it, and that was 23-inch fish. And when we got it in the net, which was a very joyous moment, I immediately thought, okay, we got to get this. We got to capture this. To me, it was like, what can I do? How can I position myself? And so I just told my friend, hey, just tuck your fingers under the front fins, give it a real nice soft hold on the back with a light pinch on the tail, lift it straight out of the water. I'll do the rest, Well, turns out that picture turned out phenomenal, better than I'd ever taken a picture because I'd been working towards it,
Yeah.
just like anything in life. You've got to work towards it. So that was the beginning of the passion for fly fishing photography because it was something I could bring to the table for my friends.
I love that. That's a great story. I love that river, and what a great place for it to happen too. That's super cool. One of the things you're kind of touching along the way there, of like some different tricks and tips that you had learned along the way, and now you've taken those and practiced them. And one of the things that I noticed, some of those things I knew, but also when I went out to Pyramid Lake with you guys and really got to watch, how serious you took the photos, I learned a ton. And one of the things that always kind of frustrated me is, and I think with a lot of anglers, and we're going to go over kind of your top tips here, but when you pick up a fish, you don't want that fish to get away. And so one of the things that I suffered from was the over grip. I had the smile down in the presentation, but I had a death grip on this fish, right? It was all fingers because I didn't want it to slip out or whatever it is. And there's some stuff with the nets that you can be doing and so I don't want to steal that. I want you to kind of walk us through, if I'm an angler out with my buddy and we catch that fish that we want to, capture. Walk me through some of the 4, 5, 6 things that you could send our listeners home with, so that the next time they're out on the river with their buddy or their son or their daughter, that they're able to just start practicing a few of these things and come home with photos that are far greater than what they have today, and that they can start practicing these different things. So what are a few tips that you can share with us that you think are important and change things?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the first tips I would recommend is get yourself a deep bag net with a big hoop on it. I had people heckling me at rivers when I'd show up with my steelhead net. Rubber bag, safer on the fish, but a big hoop. My net was handmade. He doesn't make them anymore. It was a company called Fisknat Nets, but get a big hoop, 30-inch if you can, big hoop. And the bag being deep is safer on the fish. We have to be stewards of this. We're doing catch and release fishing. My kids joke with me all the time. Why are you so passionate about piercing lips, Dad? That's all you really do.
Yeah.
But the reality is that the net lends itself to the setup. So first of all, I would say, when you're landing a fish, give that fish enough respect to put it in a good net. So I'd start with the net. Another huge pro tip that I would consider a pro tip would be your actual gloves. Mike and I fish with nitrile gloves. There's multiple reasons we fish with nitrile gloves. It's safer on the fish. It's better for photography because our hands, Mike and I are both 6'4", 200 plus pounds. You have big hands. It's easy to do one of these and be hiding the fish, if you will. So, the nitrile gloves lend to, safer on the fish. You're not removing their slime. Better for photography. Adds a little insulation in the colder weather. It's good for not getting a sunburn on your hands on some of the warmer days. When it gets too hot, we do switch to like a sun glove, but the glove does matter, especially because we'll steelhead, it's cold, or we're at Pyramid in the colder weather, or Argentina. Some of the other rules of engagement, if you will, one of them is we like to calm the fish. Older guides will take a fish and they'll turn them upside down. For some reason, when you're holding a fish, just grab onto it in the net. You could tell when they're spicy. We call them spicy because they're still got a lot of spunk in them, meaning it was landed fast. Because we try and land fish fast. You don't want. There's a fine line there. When you have that fish capitulate, it's time to get them in the net if you can. Otherwise, things can go wrong, as we all know. So what we do when we're calming the fish is we will turn it on its side or even on its back. We set up our hand positioning on that fish. That's the perfect chance to start getting your hold in order. On the back of the fish, whether you're right or left-handed, we usually put our dominant hand at the tail of the fish because we can get a little better grip. And then we strive for this pinch, which would be basically a forefinger and a thumb on that back tail. The more you get your hands out of the way, you're not covering up the fish. Because for photography, your hands in there isn't conducive to the beauty of the picture. So the other thing is in the front, we usually curl our knuckles and we'll hold the back of the fish with our thumb. So we'll just rest that fish on our front knuckles and against our thumb with our less dominant hand. And what I'll do sometimes is I'll push the fish down once I get my hold right in the net. and I'll do that little dunk a couple times, and I can feel when the fish kind of just relaxes. It's the most interesting thing, but if you take the time to do it, they
Yeah.
usually will relax for you a little bit. So then on that first lift, it's important to have symmetry with the lift. So this is like a dance between the photographer and the guy that's pulling the fish out of the water. And if you don't get to that point, it's really hard to capture it because the photographer can only impact the situation so much. And so what Mike and I do, and you've seen this like at Pyramid our last time, we talk. I think
Yeah.
there's a tendency to be like, "Hurry, we got to get the picture." There's a lot going on. The angler's excited, their heart rate's up, but we start talking to each other, and what we've found is we calm each other down a bit. We've caught sailfish, we've caught, fish of a lifetime, but it's nice to have the calming effect of a friend's in your ear saying, "Hey, you're doing the death grip on the tail. Just a little lighter on that tail, please.
Yeah.
You're holding it halfway into the water. I can't get this snap. You need to get it right at the water surface." Or if you want the massive drip shot, it's right at the lift. The beauty of today's phones is, we get high resolution out of them. Whether you're packing the new Android or iPhone, they're fantastic cameras. When I think back to the beginning of this, we were packing backpacks. So we had Nikon DSLRs. One guy would run for the backpack. Well, after you get the fish in the net, this whole deal. Now we just pull it out of our pocket, and we're in business. So that hold. So you have this commonality between the photographer and the angler, and depending on the goal of the shot, so it would be your positioning as a photographer. So on smaller fish, we take plenty of pictures of small fish because they're beautiful, and we'll
Yeah.
tell each other that. We know going into it, hey, do you want pictures of this fish? We talk to each other, and whether it's big or small, we drop what we're doing and we go help. It,
Yep.
you know, it's that's that's part of the relationship part, right? Is like, I'm gonna stop fishing because you love this fish, and I'm not going to, frown on it being quote small. Maybe it's just absolutely gorgeous. So, that the communication goes a long ways in the setup as well, is what I would say to that. A few other tips I would throw in there without, taking over and us not having a conversation here would be,
Oh, I love it. Keep it
uh,
up.
yeah, the thing is with today's iPhones, we have a tendency to take pictures in portrait mode, which would be vertical. That that's that's just most people's style. We always recommend that you turn to landscape. The reason we turn to landscape is because I'm a web developer by trade. So
And for people who
usually I
don't know
have
what
to
that
fit
is,
image.
this way, not this way. This would be the landscape way of holding your phone. Just so those that are listening kind of understand.
Yep, yep. Landscape would be horizontal.
Yep.
Exactly. So the purpose there is by holding it horizontal is that these images can be used in a wide variety of digital media. Like I said, I'm a web developer, so when I'm tasked with building websites, I'm only as good as some of the photography that we're provided, especially when I'm building fly fishing websites. And oftentimes our clients will send us imagery based on vertical images, and they don't translate to all the different size or resolution or monitor sizes that exist. So as a developer, that makes a real challenge for us because
Yeah.
then we either have to make up graphical art to close the gap, or we have to put the image inside of another image or something along those lines. So yeah, holding the phone or getting a wide angle shot, if you will, if you're in a traditional setup, it gives you more options, basically. Another really important tip that I can't underemphasize enough is in today's smartphones, they're all designed with AI. The AI is trying to focus on the
That's huge.
face,
Yeah.
and and when you're focusing on the face, You're taking the subject matter out of the equation, which equals a bad picture. The subject matter needs to revolve around the fish.
Right.
So what Mike and I do is we constantly override the AI by tapping on the fish on our phone. Specifically, we're tapping at the fish to try and get the resolution and the focus on the head of the fish. That works out really good for water drip shots. Mike and I kind of pride ourselves in taking great drip shots because it not only emphasizes the fish, but it shows that you're being a good steward and being respectful of the fish. Meaning you just lifted it out of the water. You're not holding it up for minutes on end. And one key point there. And I heard this from someone years ago. I can't remember who it was, so I can't give credit to that. But someone else told me, uh, if you hold your breath when you hold a fish out of the water, that's the equivalent of what the fish is dealing with. So we're good for holding our breath for a little bit,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
there is a point where you're
Wait it out.
you're being harmful on that fish.
Yeah.
So in being respectful to the fish, you're thinking, okay, I lifted it out of the water. I'm on a tight timeline here. Well, this is where the big net comes into play, because when you have a big deep hoop, if the fish flops, which oftentimes they do, or you need to kind of start over, you can just set the fish down right into the net. It's a great way to obviously protect the fish, but not be in such a hurry.
Yeah.
Without
Reset.
you're thinking,
Reset. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So those are some of the kind of the key points. I mean, I could talk in perpetuity about this, and you can tell I'm passionate about it. But
Yeah. Well,
any questions on those items?
well, just to kind of recap some of that, because I think, there's a few things that I want to make sure that our listeners are understanding. And some of the things that I thought were really, I don't know, powerful, but I thought, were interesting. And the first thing was the net, right? A lot of people show up to the river with an appropriate size net. A lot of times that can even be a little undersized. I'm absolutely guilty of this. As a matter of fact, I'm guilty of showing up without a net more often than not, and that doesn't work at all, really. And so these larger nets, the purpose of it is because it gives you the opportunity to not only let the fish relax, but also when you're holding these fish, you don't need to hold them as tight, because you can always set it back down into this net. And like we are saying, reset the situation and not rush through it. You're not doing any damage to the fish. It's in water. And so you're able to bring it up a couple different times and get it right. And that way you can tuck your fingers in. And that's not always easy to do. Like we were saying earlier, I was guilty of full finger grab. And one of the other thing that you guys taught me that I found really awesome was rolling the fingers in there a little bit. But at the same time, that makes it more difficult to really hold the fish. And so there are times when you need to bring it back down and kind of reset. And the other thing I wanted to touch base on is letting the fish relax. I thought that was a great point that you brought up. So many times, again, me guilty. I can kind of even feel it's bucking, and I'm trying to pull it up. And what am I expecting? Just a bigger rodeo once I get it out of the water. And so, truthfully, yeah, and that's why we have all these fish flop pictures out there. And just letting it relax a little bit, talking to your fishing buddy and say, okay, I'm ready. It's ready, and then bringing it up. So I think that's really, really important. The other thing I wanted to touch on with the gloves, and I'm not notorious for wearing gloves, but what I found was I'm getting more and more into it. The cold doesn't bother me as much, but I do believe in a few of the other things, and that is, being a benefit of the fish. So number one, for those that are listening, if you're not wearing gloves, you have to always get your hands wet before you touch the
And
fish.
wet.
That's just a
Yep.
must. You got to get your hands wet
Yep.
first. But in addition to that, there are better ways of doing it, like Adam just suggested. But back to our trip at Jurassic that we just got back from, one of the things that I noticed was when I didn't have my gloves on, it made it much more difficult for me to hold the fish. Having those gloves on does kind of give an added grip. So there's protection for the fish, but it also gives you a slightly better grip on that fish and doesn't allow for that slipping and that fish to get away from you. So lots of advantages on those gloves as well.
Yeah, and the cool thing too, and those are great points. I'm glad you reiterated those. One of the benefits too is that you can still tie. You know,
Yeah,
you still have your dexterity. You
yeah,
know, most of the gloves on the market, you're not tying, a size 14 on or 12 or whatever, because you don't have that dexterity. And then one other point that I would make too is dependent on the size of the fish will depend on our hold. So the hold I was explaining earlier with tucking the fingers under the front, the front fins, trying to get them out of the way, and then also that pinch on the tail. A lot of times on our smaller fish, if you happen to look at our Instagrams or anything, we're doing the bonefish hold, and
yeah,
it's a great way to display that great fish for where you're at.
right,
Maybe a great fish where you're at is 12-inch trout. That's fine. But
right.
when you have two hands on a 12-inch trout and you have big mitts,
Yeah,
it's tough. So
yeah,
so Mike and I a lot of times will pivot to that bonefish hold, which is just a single hand hold. You basically tuck, your middle finger and ring finger kind of underneath the fins, and you just lift it up just nice and clean and straight and square, and let the photographer do the rest. And if you do that with the drips coming off, even, a quote, smaller size fish just looks great with a bonefish hold. So depending on where we're at, that's the other technique we deploy.
well, I love the bonefish hold. If you look at my Instagram page, it's the one that I'm known for too. Because yeah, we fish a lot of rivers here in Idaho and Montana that have great fish in them. But those great fish are 12 to 16 inches, 18 inches, and yeah, that's a great tip. Um,
Yeah, two-hand hold doesn't work on a, you know, 20-inch fish very
right,
well, to be honest. We're doing the two-hand hold on 24 and up usually,
right.
unless they're real girthy like a football.
The other thing I wanted to just touch on, and you briefly touched on it, not only the communication with the person who's taking the photo, but the position of the photographer. So many times I'll see the angler who's caught the fish where they're supposed to be, down in the water with the net, and I'll see the photographer standing up. Right? You gotta talk us through that. Where should we be in conjunction to the person with the fish, whether they're in
I'm
the water
so glad.
or they're fully standing up? Walk us through that.
I'm so glad you brought that up. Once you get your lighting right, and once you have that communication on the hold, whether you're doing a single hand or you're doing the two hand hold, it's super important for the camera to be level with the fish. So if your goal is to snap a shot where your fish is resting right at the water, which happens to be my favorite look, it's not always easy though. They're spicy, the net's trying to float away. There's a lot going on. Heart's pounding. But if you're taking a photo right at the water, you need to have your phone right at the water.
Yeah.
If you can match what your subject material is, you're going to get a lot better finished product. I see exactly as you said, guys will take pictures and the photographer is just completely out of position to get the shot. The photographer is the one that needs to be moving. The photographer is the one that needs to be positioning, not
Right.
the angler that's holding the fish. That's where it's so important to have a selfless buddy. Is because it may take a couple tries and you may have to go with multiple different angles. So pictures are free. It doesn't cost anything to hit the button. So move around and get the lighting right. And we often find that a common thing that's a problem is the photographer is blocking the sun. So then it's back to communication, right? The angler has to say, "Hey, bud, you're
Your
blocking my
shadows on
sun,"
my
but the
face.
photographer yeah, the photographer also needs to be mindful of that, right? I think you've got to put yourself in a position where nowadays in fly fishing, there's a lot of really really top notch photographers, and there's guys that travel the world that bring a full photography crew or videography crew, because they're content curators or they're professionals, and so those kind of guys, you know their whole job is to get the shot. That's them catching the fish. It's them catching the shot. So the movement of the photographer, you can't take the same picture at the same angle over and over. You've got to move. So what we'll do is a couple degrees on each move. And as you work through that, it starts to come alive on the screen, because you can see that being a few degrees of separation away from a fantastic shot and an okay shot is very, very common as you
Right.
get more experience.
Yep. Great points. Other thing that I wanted to talk about, which was something that I did not know about, and a great tip that I picked up from you and Mike when we were out at Pyramid that day, was the AI thing. And I want to make sure that the listeners are completely understanding that. With our phones today, when you take a standard photo, most of you will see the little box that goes around the person's face, or if you're taking pictures of multiple people, that box will go around there. Those phones are like Adam was saying, they're there to make the person in the picture look the best. Well, that's the subject. In what we're talking about here, the subject is the fish, not the person holding the fish. And so what you can do is override the AI when you're pointing the camera at your buddy and their fish, and that camera that puts that square around their face. All you need to do is touch the fish, and that it'll drag that square down, and will position the camera's focus on that fish. And that's what Adam was talking about, overriding the AI, and it puts all the focus on that fish. And I got to tell you, that little trick alone, the net was huge, and some of these other things, but that one was the money maker. If you take anything home today, that's one I would tuck in my back pocket. Is getting, when you're taking your picture, all you have to do is take your thumb, hit the picture of the fish, and you're going to have an incredible photo. One other thing, Adam, I wanted, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to mention, the AI is written basically to always focus on the human.
Yeah.
It doesn't know that you want to take a picture of the fish. So, yeah, just to reiterate that, that's the whole premise there of why they've written AI into it. And overriding that is, critical to getting a good snap of the subject material, which is the fish.
And for a lot of us that are listening, both Adam and I, we also hunt. We also just enjoy hiking and being in the outdoors. This is the same application for your giant elk, or your deer, or your stag, or whatever it might be. If you want to focus on that beautiful pheasant that you just got on Sunday afternoon, same application. So and you'll be shocked at the photos you come home with just a couple of those little things. So there's one more tip that we really want to talk about, and that's the editing part. So I want to just kind of walk back through before we get to our truck. We're now going through our 20 photos that our buddy took of us, which I love. I love the drip. And by the way, the drip is also cool. So it doesn't just show that the fish just came out of the water, but it's cool. So catching the
cool.
yeah, when you get through those 20 photos, you know which ones they are. That you delete the rest. It's the one that has the perfect lighting and the drip coming off the fish and the perfect smile.
The angle.
And so, yeah, number one, have a good net. Okay. Number two, wet your hands or have gloves. Number three, communicate with your partner. Honor what's going on here. It's a big deal. And whether it's a big deal to you or not, keep that to yourself. It's a big deal with your buddy who just caught a fish.
Right.
Make sure you honor that at the highest level. Super important.
Yeah,
what you're doing
no
is
matter the size or kind of fish. Yeah, no matter, sorry to interrupt, no matter the kind or size. You just trust that your buddy wants a picture and you're going to do your part.
Exactly. Well, I'm glad you interrupted me. Well said. And this is about capturing their moment, not yours. And what you can do in that moment is do the best that you possibly can. And I'll try to bring back this whole thing about energy and the benefits, I think, of that, and some of the benefits I've seen you get out of that. But anyway, so we're making sure that we're communicating. We're making sure that the photographer is at the same level as the angler and the fish. We're making sure we're overriding AI. So all of these are really simple, right? We've caught a fish, we're in the water, we've got a nice net, and we're just taking a few extra seconds to let the fish relax. We're making sure that we're communicating with our partner and that everybody's in position, which again, this is real simple. Fish is in this net, we're getting positioned. We get our camera out, we override AI, we take 15, 20 photos, literally 5 to 15. You can't take too many. That's your buddy's problem when he gets to the to the truck, you'd have to delete that many. But it's better than saying, how come we didn't take more? So overtake them,
Yeah.
like Adam said, it's free, and so overtake them. So now we've released this fish. Get a slow mo of that. But now we've released this fish, and we've got our 20 photos. And we're sitting in our truck, and we've eliminated the 15, and we're down to our 3. Walk us through the editing part of this, because this is where the magic happens. And for some of you, you might have to jump on YouTube. You might have to write some of this down. But there's a real simple thing that you can do within your phone. And I'm going to hand it over to Adam here, that will take a really, like, an amazing photo. When I look through my photos, I truly think I could do better in a lot of areas, but my photos were good until I learned this trick. And then I realized my photos were okay. And now my photos are badass or better because of this little trick. So walk us through the editing part of it and some of the tips and tricks you use.
Yeah, happy to. So one of a critical thing for me, this is kind of particular to my photography, and if you do want to see any of my photography, you can go check out at Fishes with Feathers. That's Mike Pena, who we keep discussing here behind his back. His ears are burning. But at Fishes with Feathers and Instagram, that's pretty much all my photography, because we fish together
Yeah,
always.
good point. Yeah.
But one thing that I'm pretty passionate about is getting the horizon square. When you're at a weird angle and you can see it's a wonky angle. A lot of times I'll give myself enough distance from the fish. If you're getting a tight shot, that's one thing. But if you're getting the angler in the shot, you got to find your perfect distance away from them. Usually that's about 4 or 5 feet away. And so you want to make sure that you're holding if you're taking it with a phone, you're holding your phone square. Okay. And many times, I'm guilty of it, is I'll go back to look at my photos for the day and start editing. And the first thing I notice is I'm wonky, So I'll just go straight in. I'll hit the edit button on an iPhone, for example. Once you hit the edit button, you've got an adjust button for changing your elevation, basically. So I like to have my horizon line as square as possible. It makes a much more beautiful finished product. So I usually start there. Another thing I do, which is I have kind of a couple different editing styles. One of my editing styles is
Let's just back it up, Adam, just a little bit. So we're on our phone now. For those that are listening, we're on our phone now, and maybe a lot of us know this, but I know that there's a bunch that don't, because I've shown people this trick. There's an edit button on your phone on the photo, right? Right. Typically on Apple's, it's top right hand corner. I'm not sure where it is on an Android. There's an edit button. And what Adam's talking about is he's put this edit button, and now there's a variety of options. And they're not overwhelming. They're just some options that you can do to clean this picture up. So I just kind of wanted to set the tone of where we're at when we go to edit these. We don't have to have software. We don't have to upload these onto a computer. It's right there on our phone.
Yeah, you can edit right from your phone. I'm glad that you backed that up a bit, and I didn't speak to that. I do have some professional editing software that I like to use, but most of the time I'm editing straight off of my iPhone, because at the end of our trip we're doing a quick airdrop to each other, and then whatever our buddy does with them from there, whether they edit them to no end or edit them the way they like them, everybody's kind of got a different eye. But yes, once you've opened that image in, say, an iPhone, there is an edit button. You click that button. I like to square it up for the horizon. After that, there's an auto setting in there that you can click. And what it does is it adjusts all the lighting, the color, the contrast, all of it just uses AI inside of there to basically give you a quick, editing 101. It does it for you. So one of the things I do there, if I'm doing a quick edit, I'll click that. It'll auto edit. And then what I do is I go through each of those settings that it edited, and I take a mental note. I look at those and I say, it's a little more contrast than I like, or not enough. There's not enough lighting. There's not enough brightness. So let's adjust brightness. Let's go through each of those predetermined functions and maybe tweak them slightly. Usually what ends up happening is I'll hit the auto edit. and then I'll give each one of them a little more if they're skewed one way or another from the zero axis. So
Right.
sometimes they're at, 3, 5, 10. Maybe I'll go 11 or 12. If they're at, negative 3, I'll go to maybe -4 or -5. Just slight tweaks
Yep.
along the way. It's amazing. I've had friends at elk camp hand me their phone and say, "Dude, do that thing you do," and
Yeah.
I'll show it to them, of course, and say, "Hit the auto edit, right?" And then just tweak each one of these just a little bit in line with where it was already skewing, and then I'll hit save. Literally a 3 to 5 second edit here. And I'll
Yeah.
hand them their phone back, and they're like, "I don't know how you do that." Well, I didn't do much. I just playing with what's available. But we could go down a rabbit hole with the editing. I think one thing that a lot of people are kind of getting tired of in social right now, especially Instagram, is all of the editing, because those same features are available in social, like Instagram.
Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
edit any photo you want in there. Many of
Right.
the same settings that you get directly in an iPhone, for example. And I think people are there's a little bit of fatigue there with over editing. And it's like, well, that fish wouldn't look like that if you didn't run it through a ton of filters and edit the living snot out of it. That's why I like that kind of conservative edit with the quick edit, just a quick auto, and then just little tweaks off that
Right.
auto, and I'll roll with those in Instagram. I don't do
Right.
any more editing or filtering, you know. So
Well, I think you're right. We could go down these rabbit holes with high level editing, but there's really no sense in it today. I mean, you can if you're
no,
in that profession, you're in website development, and but for most of us and most anglers that we're talking to today, and the whole point of this podcast is how an average guy like me, how like you, like we above average, we just an
yeah,
average. We're not photographers. We're out there enjoying.
yeah,
How can somebody with a simple iPhone take an amazing photo? And just real quick, speaking of like professional photographers, Abe Blair, photo in the back.
yeah,
I love part of the Got Fishing team, and he is truly a professional
yeah.
photographer.
He really
So
is.
he says that the iPhones today, with just a little bit of like just stuff we're covering today, with just a little bit of thoughtfulness put into it, you can take every bit as good a photo as he can. I hope he's not going to listen to this podcast, but
I,
it's true. Up
yeah,
close, he can edit it to death and really make it look spectacular. But with these phones that we have today, it can be done really simply as well, and done really really well. That's the message that I wanted to bring today from you, to the listeners, is that not only is the camaraderie and the friendship, and there's so many that is so important, but coming away with these photos is easier than you might think. And it means so much to your fishing buddy to have a phone full of really cool photos of them out in these experiences. And that's the other thing I wanted the listeners to do, is just kind of take a different look, or kind of a different approach to, yeah, this isn't about me. This is about capturing something cool for my buddy, or my
yeah.
daughter, or my son, or the moment.
I use these same principles when I'm taking pictures of my family. you
Yeah,
know, um, yeah, it transcends. And speaking of Abe, Abe's a world class photographer. I absolutely love his photography. He would say something to that vein of, you guys can get about as good a stuff as I can. I'm so detail oriented that I'll always respect his profession
yeah.
for what it is. Not everyone's going to have access to the type of equipment he has, and this is more of the most of us have a phone. We can deploy that, and we can use it to that the best of its ability. It's available to us and it's free, so why not?
Well, you guys crush it, and it's just fun to be around guys who are like that really understand the essence of fishing. And it's so many of us go to the river thinking it's about what I catch, and to watch you guys celebrate each other's catches at that level, just the excitement that you have for it, but then also the time and energy that you guys put into capturing such an awesome photo. It's awesome. Not only do I like hanging out with people like that,
Yeah.
but I also like to hang out with people that, hopefully I'm bringing something to their table, like we were saying before, and that they're bringing to my table. And, I think you guys are amazing. in a lot of different aspects of life that we're not going to talk about on this podcast, but truly just great men in this world, great family guys, and just people that I really appreciate being around. But it's stuff like this, the stuff that I learned from you guys out fishing was amazing. And something that I want to tie back into that I try to talk a lot about is because I'm constantly getting asked, different tips and tricks of being a better angler. And they're always seeing, my Instagram page and Got Fishing and stuff, always catching these huge fish. And they say, what's the secret to that? Well, number one is actually being out there fishing. But number two, you'd be absolutely amazed at the power of being there for other people. Don't make your next fishing trip about you. Make it about what you can be doing for other people while you're out there. And that's one of the things that I really, really, really respect about Mike and Adam and how they have that in a bottle. I mean, they should sell it, because I have seen so many anglers, and some of them are my buddies, but I've seen it time and time again where we get caught up in catching the fish, and your buddy who's just caught his second steelhead or his third steelhead or his second peacock bass or whatever it might be, it can create an anxiety in you, like, when's my turn, and you have some anxiety about not wanting to take another photo, a third photo, a fourth photo of your buddy. And the best advice I can give you is to continue to honor that. Your fish is coming. Your moment is coming. And to every single time, whether it's your day or not, to take the time and energy to set the rod down. Don't make it about you, and make it about your friend. And if you'll do that one tip, I promise you, your fish is coming. It might not be that day, but it is coming. And that moment will be amazing. And you're going to want your fishing partner to give you the exact same attention that you've been giving them. And it will be reciprocated. So the biggest tip I can give you is, some of us, when we're out there, we have hot days and you're just crushing it, right? And yes, take that fourth photo, take that fifth photo of your buddy's fish, because he's having a great day. Capture it. So I did want to say that I did remember that, Mike catching a lot of fish one day, and then you're getting hot, and it just didn't matter who was hot, who was not. There was that appreciation of every fish caught. And I really, really loved seeing that. And that's kind of what I want from my friends, and hopefully what I'm delivering for them when I'm out there.
I love that, Brian. And I'd love to speak to that just slightly before
Yeah,
we
please.
wrap it up. Mike and I, we talk a lot about our energy. We'll call it our chi,
Yeah.
or whatever it is. But we all know what we're talking about when we're talking about our energy. And I have a great example of this amongst many. I've been fishing with Mike for 13 years now. So one example would have been this Argentina trip, to be honest. Things happened when I got into Buenos Aires. I ended up,
Yeah.
uh, losing my cell phone, if you will. So I'm starting out a trip into the backcountry without something, that I'm passionate about, being able to capture my memories.
Yeah.
So that was a really unique day because, once we both realized your phone's gone, you're not getting it back. uh, you know, Mike was a little upset because he knew I was upset, and we're at AEP. You make that transition from Easy in Buenos Aires over to AEP. It's a little regional airport, and you're getting ready to fly into El Calafate, and you're all excited, and things happen, and uh, you know, I I could have let that ruin my trip, to be
Totally.
honest, because you're starting off, you're thinking, man, I'm so invested in this. And by the way, Mike and I put a tremendous amount of time into prep. I mean, we make sure all our lines are fresh. We make sure all of our backing's fresh. We go through all and make sure all of our bugs are perfect. We make sure, we put a lot of time in of prep. And, I looked at Mike, and we're at AEP, and I said, Mike, like, it's not going to ruin my trip. I'm here. We're going to fish hard. We got your phone. Let's, it's fine. And he was like, you're over it? And I'm like, I'm over it. He said, so am I. so,
I love that.
and the thing is like, we went down there and we absolutely hammered them, and I won't speak to this specific trip, but trips I've been on, I've watched guys that they get a little twisted up because at night you're going through the camaraderie and everyone's kind of talking about their day, and next thing you know the phones come out, and Mike and I are it's very common that people are like, wow, my pictures didn't look like that, or things like that, and Mike and I are always very cautious there, right? Because there's absolutely no benefit to those around you to be a machismo, big shot and all this stuff. There's no value in it. Our thought is, I'll say, give me your phone. I'll edit some of them for you. Or, hey, if we're fishing by each other, yell. I'll come down.
Yeah. Right.
But what I've seen happen time and time again from that selfless act is I end up with a fish of a lifetime. And it's crazy how our energy transfers through our fly rod and our fly line to our fly. I'm a big proponent of it. I've had days where it maybe wasn't going great on the home front or something, or, I was just off, I woke up on the wrong side of the bed type of deal. And I've had terrible days on the water, and I got over that in my youth because I said to myself, should be grateful. You're here fishing.
Right.
Change your mindset, change your mind, change your grind. Come on. So that's what I would say about the chi and how much it matters.
So, see, there you have it from another angler who has mad success when he's out there. Yeah, and yes, it is about the prep too. I certainly don't want to step over that. It is about making sure you got the right bugs and the right flies, but it is about having the right attitude, about having the right energy. And time again, I have seen energy outfish that guy who has the perfect cast, the perfect everything, the perfect sims, the perfect you name it. Positive energy is going to win every single day. And if anything, makes you somebody that people want to head back out. You're going to get invited on more trips. People want to have someone there that is participating in the awesomeness. And if you're out there with a great attitude, capturing awesome photos and being humble, you're going to be on that next trip, believe me. So, Adam, I don't know what else we have to cover, man. What a great podcast.
That was fun.
Yeah, so I could keep going, and I do want to talk about Jurassic, which we just got back from, which was absolutely incredible. And just real quick, we'll talk about it just real quick because a lot of people do spend that time and energy and money, whether it's on a massive trip like Jurassic or whether it's a very doable trip for all of us, like over to Pyramid Lake, where it just takes some fuel and a little bit of extra cash. It's so awesome to go through your phone and to be able to look through these memories. And I think that that's kind of the most important thing I would like people to take away from this podcast is how simple it is to really help you and your buddy and your friends create some amazing memories with the technology that we have today and just a couple little simple tricks and tips. Yeah, it'll change everything. And so also, I liked how you gave Mike's Instagram, but if you want, give yours out as well, because I think you've got a lot of cool stuff. If you guys want to follow Adam and his adventures, Adam?
At Indo Down, my favorite.
Indo. Yes, at Indo Down, Indicator. These guys are savages
At
on
Indo
the
Down.
Yeah.
Yep, at Indo Down. And I would love to chat just real briefly about Argentina, especially because, we just fished there together 2 weeks ago. For Mike and I, like we fish a ton of Stillwater. We were fishing Stillwater from the beginning. Honestly, we met fishing Stillwater, and I think there's always been a little bit of a tendency to feel like Stillwater's easy, and I can't watch an indicator all day, and there's not much effort here, and da 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 da. There's a tremendous amount of knowledge that a person can glean over their whole lifetime fishing Stillwater. I love a river. I love swinging for steel. I love the ocean. I mean, honestly, saltwater practically has ruined me. But the reality is that there's a lot of nuance to fishing Stillwater, just like there is salt. Just like you're looking for nervous water or your setup or your rigging or your depth, there's tremendous amount to it. But speaking specifically to Jurassic, because I'd like to real quick, especially because it just came fresh off the plate here. I want to thank Got Fishing. I want to thank you, Brian. I want to thank Carrie. I want to thank your crew. You guys were very accommodative to us. The last time we went, things were weird because of the COVID timeline and all that jazz. And the crew we fish with, we call it the band. Our other crew is out of state. Reno boys and whatnot. And I just wanted to thank you for that experience because you checked on us. You made sure everything was covered. You made sure we got extra nights when we wanted extra nights in El Calafate. You curated the experience to us, and that goes a long ways when you're hiring an outfitter, right? For the guy that's putting up the money, it's one of those like you kind of want to be taken care of throughout the whole
Yeah,
process. And if at
yeah,
any point you don't feel like you're getting taken care of, you're unlikely to rebook. So
right.
it's a pretty important process there. But Argentina specifically, you guys got us all lined out. Estancia Laguna Verde, world class. You get a Michelin chef, you get the best guides. If you look on Sim's website right now, they were just down there fishing,
Yeah,
displaying their brand new weight line. So it's world class. It's rated, in the top 5 in the world for a fly fishing destination, even though it's a lake. But we also fished the river, and we crushed it on the river, which was a great experience. And I wanted to speak to that really fast about what a fantastic trip that was, and be able to get to enjoy that. You were on the trip with us. That was cool. We hadn't fished together internationally. We met
yeah,
at Pyramid and we fished a few other places, but that I highly recommend that to anybody. It may be one of those cases where you have to save a bit for it. I used to always save I do every year. I save for my trips. It doesn't have to be out of touch. It's just where you put your priorities. Some guys like Harley Davidson. Some guys like to fly to Jurassic to catch fish and let them go.
right.
So, you know,
Well said. I like going to Jurassic and letting them go personally. I don't have a Harley, so my money's going to Jurassic.
yeah, yeah, I'm good on a bike. You can only ride
Yeah,
it 5 months a year anyway, practically.
exactly.
But
Where we live.
yeah, I really appreciate you bringing me on, Brian. And thank
It's
you
been
very
such
much for the
such a
opportunity.
fun podcast. Yeah. And I appreciate all the kind words you said. Honestly, it's clients like you guys that make our job at Got Fishing easy. I mean, really, because this is we have clients out there that we send on trips, and we love doing it. And the whole essence of Got Fishing is to make sure that you're on the best fishing adventure that meets your needs, and we're kind of your insurance policy. But the benefit that I get is friendships. Meeting people like you and Mike and Dennis Dameron and Frank and Brian Hoskins. And, I'd love doing these hosted trips, but I have to say that, and it sounds like, yeah, you probably say that after every trip. The group that we just came back from Jurassic was as good as it gets. I mean, it was just every single person. And you want to talk about the essence of positive energy. I'm just going to touch back on that real quick because with our group that day, so at Jurassic, one of the things about it is it can be windy. The weather cannot be, it can be a little bit nasty, and you have to be prepared for that because the nastier it gets, the better it can be. So it's kind of like what, but it's true. And the first couple of days that we got there, it was not kind. It was windy and it was cold, and there was some people who hadn't been there and their attitudes were amazing, right? I mean, this is shocking because I'm not talking about a breeze. I'm talking about a wind that when you got out of the truck, you'd think to yourself, there's no way we're fishing today, but we are. And the weather did end up clearing up. We had 4 days. It was just absolutely spectacular. But the point I'm driving home is that with this group and the people that were on there, their attitudes were so good. Day 2 was horrific. And the biggest
It's
fish
brutal.
of the week were caught on that
Yeah,
day. And it was because of
yeah.
attitudes and people sticking it out. So that was a blast. And again, being surrounded by people like that was, just I feel very, very lucky to be involved in an industry that I get to constantly hang out with winners and people that are raising their bar in their own life. You are who you hang out with. And so I feel extremely fortunate to have people like you and Mike and some of those other people that were on the trip in my life because it just makes me a better person. And I really mean that. It means a lot to me. So
Likewise.
what a great trip across the board. And I think that's what fishing's about, being there for each other having these incredible experiences, capturing these moments, and hitting repeat. And one thing I want to touch on real quick, I think that Adam brought up that's awesome, and that is, plan for these things. They are worth it. And there's some of us that have great jobs, some of us have better jobs. We all have jobs where if we just put some focus and maybe cut out some of the extra stuff we spend money on, you can make these things happen. And maybe it isn't Jurassic, but it is a trip to Alaska. If you've been dreaming to come over to Montana, or a saltwater trip, there are affordable trips out there. And we would love to help you with that, whether it's a trip that you book or whether it's just a suggestion. We don't book Pyramid Lake, but we'd love to tell you how you and your friends can get out there and have that incredible world-class experience. So, yeah.
Christmas Island's a great example. I mean, that's a very reasonable trip for world class angling. I
Well
mean,
said.
that
Yeah.
trip, I don't know that there. I feel strongly about Christmas Island. You know, Mike tends to lean towards the Stillwater as his favorite destination in the world to go down to Argentina, and I love Argentina, and it's hard to pick, but you know the opportunities at Christmas Island are unbelievable because you get all those reefs to fish, you get blue water. You know, there's they curate the experience. I mean, yeah, I wouldn't overlook Christmas Island if you want a salt fishing that's world class.
A great point. There are some world-class adventures out there that do not come with a world-class price tag. There are some affordable trips out there. And so not only are they affordable, but there are trips that if you plan for, you can make them, you can make them happen. So, yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Adam, because, yeah, I think that one of the things we hear all the time at Got Fishing is, I've been wanting to do this forever. And our answer is,
Hmm.
what can we do to help make forever happen now? Not let another year go by. And every person that we've helped push off that fence has come back and said, thank you. And it wasn't honestly just about the trip. It was about the fact that they went and did this adventure and what it made
Yeah.
them feel like. So, yeah, I love fishing. There's a whole mental benefit to it. There's this whole camaraderie with friendships. It's an opportunity to see the world. And yeah, but back to the whole essence of this podcast, it was to help you become a better photographer in the outdoors, whether you're hunting, fishing, hiking, or biking. Hopefully the tips that Adam and I shared in amongst the talks about friendship and energy and the different destinations that we've traveled to, hopefully that's what you pulled out, is being a better angler partner. Not just a better angler, but being a better partner
Yep.
out there for whoever you're fishing with,
That's right.
and being a better photographer for your buddy and capturing that moment.
Hmm.
So you crushed it, man. And I really, really appreciate all the tips and tricks. I'm so glad when Mike suggested that we do this podcast that we did it, because this is awesome. And thank you so much for taking the time to be on it.
I'm honored. I appreciate you having me on, Brian.
Yeah.
Tight lines, and I'll be fishing next to you soon.
Steelhead soon. Okay.
You know it, brother.
Everybody who's listening, thank you so much. And again, we're not going to grow this thing without you. We're just not. So we have an incredible podcast like this. What we need you to do is share it, like it, comment, just help us out a little bit and help us grow this. So we appreciate you. Hopefully the stuff that we're bringing to you is bringing some form of value. And we really do appreciate, at the end of the day, you guys taking the time to listen. So thank you. Tight lines. Have a great day.